Life science consulting is a multi-billion-dollar industry and it's going to be the future, but nobody talks about it. So in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to teach you exactly what is life science consulting, what projects do they look like, who is it actually for, and how do you eventually break into the industry. If you stay until the end of this video, I'm going to give you an exclusive bonus that will help you get started with your application right away. So first thing first, what is actually life science consulting? Now, for those of you guys who are interested in management and strategy consulting, usually consulting is involved in helping other businesses to improve their business performance, as we have talked about in a separate YouTube video here. And similarly, life science consulting is a specialized branch of consulting that focuses on helping pharmaceutical, biotech, and medtech companies. And these companies, they don't necessarily just help the business challenges, but also anything related to manufacturing, formulation, R&D, and all the way until go-to-market strategy, which are the usual business things that most of the consultants would help. But why nobody talks about life science consulting? Similar to engineering consulting, is a highly specific and quite niche area within the consulting space that is a little bit exclusive to usual, business students or engineering students. It is more focused on a specific segment of the whole market, which is, life science and healthcare. Now, what kind of projects are you likely to get involved if you want to go into life science consulting? These are the top 4 types of projects that life science consultants are typically involved in. First, market entry. Second, market access and pricing. Third, operational improvement. Fourth, regulatory and compliance. Now, let's look at each of them in more detail. So typically for market entry, you are involved in evaluation of the new market, coming up with a new plan and strategies to actually go into the market. So for example, GSK comes to you and asks you to evaluate whether it's a good idea to develop a new cardiovascular drug for their existing market. And you will be asked to look at how big is the market, how many competitors are there, how likely they're to penetrate through the market, and if it's actually worth going into this new market. If the answer is yes, then your job is then to design how do they actually enter the market, who should they target to, should they distribute to hospitals, pharmacies, or should they sell directly to consumers, how do they go about marketing this new drug to their new distribution channel, and how does that compete with their existing portfolio of different drugs. So as a consultant, your job not only is to answer the yes or no question, and also to come up with a plan to make it happen for your clients. Then the next type of project is pricing and market access. So now you have figured out this is a new market, and this can also happen to an existing market that your clients are already involved in. Your job is to figure out, is your current pricing the best, or is there any other way that you can still optimize for the pricing? And should you have multiple pricing categories? How should you price each drug for? And is there any discount space? How do you incentivize people to buy more? All of that, so then you can package the product better. The pricing and the packaging will also be optimized for the type of customers that you're targeting. So for example, for the conventional painkillers that pharmaceuticals are designing for, the pricing is generally pretty low. You can buy it for a couple of pounds. But if we're talking about new therapies like cell and gene therapies, then you probably can charge pretty high. You can charge, thousands or even sometimes 10,000. And I've even heard companies actually charging, 100,000s for specific cancer therapy. So depending on how complex the product is, how you can deliver that, and how big is the target market, you can play around with the pricing pretty easily. And that's what you also do as a consultant. Fourth category is regulation and compliance support for specifically pharmaceutical and biotech companies. So pharmaceutical and biotech companies, they develop a lot of new innovative drugs, and in which they have to go through very lengthy clinical trial process. So for example, FCA in US and also the European equivalent one. And throughout this whole development and the clinical trial process, are you doing everything that is needed and also required? Do you provide enough evidence to showcase the data is actually true, so that when the regulatory body, they look at all of your data, your patient information, the way you store the data, everything is compliant, and your clients don't get extra charge or fine by different regulation bodies. These are just 4 very common projects that you are likely to get involved to do, and there's so many more that you can get even involved in, for example, due diligence, M&A, and also even research. There are companies called contract research organizations, short for CRO, where they help other companies to conduct research before they actually do an experiment. And sometimes you can even outsource your experiment. All you need to do is just to collect the data. Who are the top companies in life science consulting firm that you can also apply to? Tier 1, we have the traditional MBB, McKinsey, Bain, BCG. They essentially the whole market. They can do strategy consulting, management consulting for multiple industry. They do lots of projects ranging in multiple industry, and that also includes life science consulting. There's also other companies like IQVIA, pretty famous for clinical related life science consulting. You also have more regional one, for example, like Newton Europe, and PA Consulting is also a pretty big one. And I'm going to include 5 more life science consulting firms in here. Now, the biggest question is, who can apply to life science consulting industry? There are 2 categories of applicants that are generally accepted by life science consulting firms. The first and the best one is life science graduates and healthcare professionals. The second category is general business graduates. Now, if we talk about the first one, if you're a life science graduate, doesn't matter if you study biosciences, biology, biochem, chemistry, and if you graduated as a doctor, nurse, if you worked in healthcare industry before, you are absolutely eligible to apply to life science industry. Why? Because you have that deep technical knowledge, you understand how a drug is designed, you understand the technical difficulties and the mechanism of different products, which is the drug itself. And if you're working in the healthcare industry, you're already familiar with how hospital works, the distribution channels, how do patients react, how does the patient journey look like. So you already have that advantage by having that technical knowledge and also the domain knowledge. You need to pick up skills and understand how marketing, sales, manufacturing, formulation, all research, all of these can tie together, and how does that play out at a pretty high business level. And really train up your communication skills so that you are able to explain complicated ideas and your finding research to C-level suites and also clients. And once you have filled up your business skills, you are 100% ready to apply for life science consulting firms. And as a business student, vice versa, you already understand how organization works, you already have pretty high business awareness, hopefully, and all you need to work on is the technical understanding of life sciences industry, like how the industry works. The downside of a business student, which sometimes life science consulting firms don't necessarily hire from business background, is because it's very difficult for you to learn the technical part, the product information, like how does this mechanism work, how biology work in a short period of time. Therefore, you're gonna have slight advantage being a business student, but if you have a general pretty solid understanding of how industry work, then you can still get into life science consulting. Now, the most important part is how do you actually get into life science consulting? These are the 3 steps that you can follow to get into life science consulting. First, gain experience. Second, network extensively. Third, prepare for case interviews. When you're trying to break into a new industry, doesn't matter if it's life science consulting, if you're trying to go into investment banking or consulting in general, you're gonna have to have experience, ideally through some shapes or form of internship. It can also be some research experience or some work experience, even if it's unpaid. Having the experience essentially helps you to do 2 things. First, help you demonstrate high commitment into this industry by doing some experience already. And second of all, by showing that you already have that industry knowledge, which is very important for company to hire someone that comes out of college or universities. That would be the first thing I would suggest you do, which is to get some experience. You can be working for biotech startup. You can get experience from summer internship with major pharmaceutical company, or even just get involved in the whole life science industry. It can be like manufacturing company, can be investment company, but that really allows you to already have that first foot in the door experience in life science industry. Second, networking. You want to network with people that are already in the industry, and there are 2 goals out of this. First, you want to learn in depth of how the industry works, and on top of that, the second goal is for you to get referral out of your networking. And the third, which is pretty hard for 90% of the people that are applying to life science consulting, which is case interview. Now, the case interview for life science consulting is gonna be pretty different from the usual case interview that you can expect from management consulting firms. Typically, for management consulting firms, they give you pretty, I would say 90%, very business-focused, frameworks and interviews to prepare for. But when it comes to life science, it's gonna be a mixture of 60% business case and 40% life science industry knowledge. So for example, a typical case could look like they're gonna give you a bar chart in which they explained this drug has gone through clinical trial 1, clinical trial 2, but unfortunately failed at clinical trial 2. So what would you do to help the client with this situation? So in this case, there's different options. You can repurpose the drug for a different function. You can sell it off to another company. You can try, clinical trial 2 again, and then just to try to fix it, so then you can try to go through the whole clinical phase, phase 3, and eventually go to market. So it's different, options that you can evaluate for company. And as a life science consultant, you need to also understand, how the drug development pipeline looks like, what's the probability of passing, clinical stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. So that would require specific understanding about the clinical stage and then, the general life science knowledge. Now you understood how life science consulting works. If you want to learn how to break into general consulting without a business degree, then check out this video and I'll see you on the other side.